I would just like to start with a couple statistics because when I was researching this interview, I could not believe what I learned. YouTube has over 1 billion users, is that correct?
Yes, monthly users.
Monthly users, I missed that. That's almost 1/3 of all of the people on the internet. And you are now reaching more of the young, what is it, the 18 to 34 group in the US than any TV network?
Yeah, we're reaching more 18 to 49-year-olds with mobile alone than any cable or broadcast network.
So for those of you that perhaps don't have kids who are teenagers or don't like to learn how to do makeup on your own, you need to know something. No one below the age of 20 is really spending time consuming the kind of media that we did. And Grace is one of the most significant stars, basically, of this new media. Whoa. She has over 3 million subscribers to her channel, has a movie out that Michal mentioned, and I will confess that until my kids told me about her, I had never heard of her.
Well, I'm here.
So, Susan, let me just go back to you for a second. You've been running YouTube for a few years now, and I think when we once spoke about this, you said you saw this like Google was in the early days.
Yeah.
And were you right about that, or is it more?
Yeah, so I was at Google I've been at Google for 17 years, and I joined it when it was really tiny. 3 years ago, I moved over to YouTube, and when I came to YouTube, I really felt like I was almost going back in time because I saw that it was a smaller company, but it was also on the edge of this really big change. And that really big change is users changing the way that they view video. And so TV is probably one of the biggest markets, from ad, from subscription, from time spent. And if you look at the next generation, they are completely changing the way that they watch TV. They don't watch the TV as we knew it. They watch Grace and all of Grace Contemporary on their mobile phones, in their bedroom probably. And it's completely different. And so I saw that opportunity with YouTube, and I think we're still at the beginning of it. And so I'm really excited to be leading YouTube when we make that transition.
And one thing that's kind of cool here is that we have, in some ways, the new version of almost the talent in the studio, right? I mean, is that a fair comparison to make here? And Grace, how do you feel about your studio? Are they treating you well?
I love my studio very much. Please never kick me off the site. It's absolutely the new kind of relationship, and because media itself is evolving constantly. It's going to be different when you leave this room than when you came in this room, and I can truly attest to the way that millennials, for lack of a better term, are consuming it is changing. I had a talk show on E! Last spring, and it was a real experiment in would a digital audience consume a more traditional form of content, and the answer is kind of yes and no. People really value convenience over quality sometimes, and so YouTube being so readily available and so personal and intimate is something I think that attracts people to that content now more than the traditional television show.
And Susan, there's also been a lot of discussion about what are the rights of the creators versus the company. You know, you take a percentage of the revenue from the advertising. Yeah. I know you've made some changes to this. Tell me about how the relationship has evolved between the creators and YouTube.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we love our creators.
Hooray.
We always say that creators are the lifeblood of YouTube. And I mean, I think the really interesting thing about you talked about Grace and being on the studio. I mean, I think the really interesting thing is this next generation of YouTube creators, like, they are media companies. They are their own media company. They are the CEO, they are the personality, and then behind them,
and the
as they get bigger, they have production and editors and writers. And so we really have this next generation of media companies. And we have a symbiotic relationship. We are a platform. Our goal is to create the world's best leading edge way to view video, however you want to watch video. And so we love to work with content creators like Grace to distribute that video. And I think the relationship is getting better. Our goal is to really invest in our creators and continue to make that really work. across the board and grow all our creators. And so we're growing them in lots of different ways. And we're seeing progress there.
Mm-hmm. And Grace, you though you are, as the brand, you can be in a lot of different platforms. I mean, you're not tied to YouTube per se, right? You have an Instagram presence.
Yeah, that's the wonderful thing. It's a completely respectful relationship because there's so much creative freedom. It's the endless, infinite amount of creative freedom that makes the platform so special, is that your authenticity and your ability to express yourself however you feel is right is rewarded and is encouraged, and there's no gatekeepers, and that's what really drew me to it, and makes me feel like I don't think I'll be leaving it anytime soon. I started out in traditional entertainment, auditioning for TV and movies and commercials, and the casting directors did not want to cast me in anything. But YouTube allowed me to upload anything that I wanted and to reach a global audience that wasn't available to myself before that. So yeah, it's amazing how it evolves.
And Grace has a really interesting story. It was described by one person as one of the most important events in the history of online video. She kind of had a Prince-like experience. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
She was affiliated with one company and learned basically that she didn't really control her own content. And so what did you do?
Well, when I first started out, I was making YouTube videos the same way a lot of other content creators were making videos, as a fun hobby, not really understanding yet that it was a platform for a career. And I was making them while I was auditioning and while I was doing comedy in New York City, and this website saw some of my videos and then brought me on to make videos for them 5 days a week from the comfort of my own apartment, which was extremely perfect. I was so excited about it. Still not knowing that the digital space was that advantageous, I thought this was just my survival job, and I could quit waiting tables. And so I started working for them. I made 5 videos a week, every week for 2 years straight that lived only on their website and not on YouTube. And then we brought the series called Daily Grace over to YouTube. And for another 2 years, I made 5 videos a week from the comfort of my own home, all by myself, and that channel grew to about 2.4 million subscribers. And in that time, I realized that unlike all the other content creators, I didn't own any of my content. I was still paid as an independent contractor. Basically,
How did you figure that out?
I had a conversation with a friend, and she said, "You're doing this wrong." And I said, "Oh, no." And thankfully, I met this incredible agent at WME that was one of the first agents at the time that was putting time and energy into digital creators and saw the value there. And he helped me try to renegotiate my contract with this company, and they just wouldn't budge for a year. And the audience had no idea that I didn't own the content. I wasn't getting paid out for the views it was getting. It was all going to this company. And so I decided to leave that YouTube channel.
You left your own channel.
Yeah, I left my own channel, and I started the channel that I am on now, and I wasn't under contract allowed to let anyone know that that was happening. I wasn't allowed to tell the audience about like the behind the scenes or the business, nor did I necessarily want them to know everything that was going on. But thankfully, because YouTube is an amazingly supportive community and a platform that's built on collaboration versus competition, all of my other content creator friends that were far more articulate than me and much more supportive wrote these blog posts. Like the Vlog brothers, John Green and Hank Green, wrote these informative blog posts that got circulated around, and people started to really understand and see what was happening. And it was amazing to see that the audience was subscribed to me as Grace Helbig and not me, Daily Grace, the series.
And you recouped all those subscribers and sort of rebuilt yourself.
I did.
But now you own yourself.
Now I own myself, which is amazing.
Congratulations.
You can do that.
I am going to ask 2 questions from a couple people. I want questions from the audience, so please get ready. But I also would like to ask questions from a girl named Sabrina, who maybe is my daughter, and her friend Clem, who lives in England, and they met via YouTube, actually. So I asked them to ask questions. So I have one for you, Grace.
Okay.
Do you ever feel like your personality off camera isn't entertaining enough?
Oh, that's the existential crisis. I don't, actually. And that's the thing that a lot of people wonder is, are creators online like themselves in person? And I can say some are, slightly more reserved. And I think I am myself in person as I am online. I hope, at least, that I haven't completely lost myself in some fictitious character I've created for myself. I hope that I'm interesting offline. I don't know if I can answer that.
I'll let them know. And for Susan, why do you think that YouTube is so popular?
I feel like I should ask your two little ones, as I'm sure they
Because
would give
you
me a
can
good
be
answer.
famous with that answer.
I think it's really popular for kids and adults. 1 billion people is a third of the people on the internet for a variety of reasons. And so I think first, it's all the amazing content that we have. And so if you are a teen, then you have a bunch of creators that you love, like Grace, and you can watch them and interact with them and communicate with them and comment and follow them and actually feel like they're one of your really good friends. You might also be in the category where maybe you don't know about the creators, but you still want to be able to learn something new. And I think that's a really important use case where people are looking up and learning whether it's a magic trick or like how to fix something in their house there's so many things that are visual, and so being able to see that, and it's pretty amazing once we look across the globe of what people are learning on YouTube.
I can attest that I learned how to open a bottle of wine with a shoe on YouTube.
With a shoe.
Yeah, it works. It works. That's when I knew the platform was important.
And that's an example of just like all the diversity that we have on the content. Like who would know or think that you would want to
How many of you are going to Google that right now?
Yeah.
I also think the mobile is a huge advantage. When I grew up, it was always like the living room. Everyone was in the living room. And for years in tech, we used to talk about the living room. Like, how are we going to get into the living room? And then like it suddenly occurred to me one day, like, wow, like I am thinking like a person from a different era. Like it's no longer wired and stuck on the wall.
Yep.
You can take it anywhere you want. And so the majority of our viewing now is mobile, right? And so I'm sure your daughters, like my kids, love to watch
In the
their favorite
privacy of their
shows,
own
like
rooms,
in their
where you
bedroom,
can't make them stop.
which as a parent is always a challenge, right? Because it's harder to manage, but it gives them a lot more flexibility. And so you can take it anywhere. It can be fully cross-device. It can be on the living room, but it also could be in your bedroom. And so I think, the combination, the cross-diverse and the huge amount of content and the interactivity component that you can hear from your creators and comment, and they'll sometimes write back, is really, really magical.
Yep. Questions? Mike Handler here somewhere. Anybody? Okay, I'm going to ask a tough one. When is YouTube going to be profitable?
Well, right now we're investing in the platform, and we're investing a lot because we see this big opportunity of the TV viewing still moving. And so just to put that into numbers, if you look at the 18 to 24-year-old category, their viewership has gone down 40% in terms of the number of hours of TV that they watch each
Of regular TV.
Of regular TV, linear TV, the one on the wall. And so we see this as an opportunity for us to continue to invest, and there's so many areas for us to invest in at the same time. We're investing in VR, which has been a really exciting area. We're investing across the globe in all the emerging markets. We're investing in actually seeing YouTube on TVs, for example.
So it sounds like no time soon.
Well, right now we're in the investment mode.
Okay, but no timetable.
No timetable, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
One more chance for questions right here. Can you wait for the mic?
At the risk of totally revealing my ignorance, this whole thing is fascinating to me, the concept of creators and creating your own following. To what's the distribution of individuals watching YouTube versus B2B, or as a platform for businesses to get their message out? I know Vimeo tried to create that kind of a platform, which is not anywhere near as ubiquitous as YouTube is. So how does that, what's the distribution of your users versus consumers and businesses?
Yeah, when we look at the billion users that come to YouTube every month, we don't always know where they're coming from, but we count them as like they're consumers. But I do think there is like a really interesting business case, and I'd say it's more of a business to consumer opportunity. And that's where we see a lot of that, like I'll say the makeup videos, right, is a really interesting place where people are talking about how do you apply the makeup, and then what are the products. Any kind of do-it-yourself type of projects at home, again, is like another opportunity. So, I mean, cars, I just bought a new car. All the cars have all the different features, their videos of that. So I think the business to consumer is a really important area. And in general, our focus is as a consumer company to delivering great video to consumers.
One more question. Right here.
Yes, this is Kay Koplovitz. I would like you to talk a little bit about VR and AR and what YouTube is learning about those two enters into the marketplace, because there's a tremendous momentum behind them on the technology side. And what do you learn so far from what you're seeing in VR used on YouTube and AR?
Yeah. Well, I think, overall we're big believers in VR. We're big believers that it's a new medium and it can create experiences that really take you to that place to experience it in a way that you couldn't experience it on just a flat screen. And so we've actually worked to take all the YouTube content to make that work in a VR capacity, but then we're filming content that's also native to VR as well. And I mean, I think reality is like we're still learning like what really works from a VR component, because suddenly you need to film differently. And so you can't take the existing content, you need to rethink it, rewrite it, rescript it to make it really work in a VR component, right? In a regular TV or a movie, your users are just looking ahead, right? So you're not worried about your users like looking behind or to the side or looking up. And so the fact that they can get distracted in that way, you need to completely redesign your scripts is a very different area. But I mean, we're big believers in it. I think there'll be a lot more as the devices come down and they become a lot cheaper. As the camera technology to be able to film it will become even more important. And so I think the potential to change it from an entertainment standpoint is tremendous, as well as from an educational component.
One last quick question right here.
What are the safeguards to keep the mean people out, terrorists, bullies, etc.? What are the internal safeguards?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think that's always a challenge when you have an open platform, right? That platform can be available to all kinds of great creators like Grace, but then it's also, and all types of social activists. But yeah, sometimes the challenge is going to be on, getting with groups that are not using it with the best of intentions. So, there are a few things that we do. So first of all, we have a system. I mean, we have over 400 hours that are uploaded every minute to YouTube. And so the way that we manage the content is it gets flagged by a user, and then it goes into a queue. And if we see anything that violates our guidelines, anything that's promoting hate, anything that's promoting violence,
Is it an
adult
algorithm?
content. So a user will flag it. So we have some content that we may look at on upload that might be an issue. But then if it's on the platform, it gets flagged, we will have a user look at it, and then we will pull it down. And so we definitely try to enforce that as much as we possibly can. Or we enforce it like as quickly as we possibly can is probably a better way to say it. Recently, we just came up with this program called Creators for Change, because what we saw is that we really wanted to be able to take some of these harder issues that are on the internet, some of the xenophobia, some of the bullying, some of the hate speech, and find creators who were really tackling it head on. And so we found a number of them, and we gave them this Creator for Change award. We gave them $1 million in equipment to be able to get that message even further. And so I think it's a way of also elevating the voices that are promoting tolerance and promoting empathy, so that the young people today are hearing that as well. So that's been a really, really important priority for us.
Great, and I think that is a lesson we all need to really reflect on. So that's a good way to end. Susan, Grace, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.